All right, so right now you will be doing 1 point perspective and you're working on letters. So you should see a page that looks just like this. Again, start off on the top with your name and your class period, please, so that I can make sure it goes in the right pile. But what we're going to do is I'm going to focus a little bit more on this large square. So you won't see the rest of it, but the very first thing that you do when you're working with especially 1 point perspective, but perspective in general, don't forget our vocabulary. You guys, right smack in the middle, you're going to have a horizon line. Now, the horizon line is not always going to be in the middle. It depends on the drawing, but for what we're doing right now, your horizon line's in the middle, so you do a nice horizontal line. And then you're going to go ahead and put a vanishing point. And again, I'm going to put my vanishing point in the middle, but it is not necessarily where it's always going to be. It just depends on the needs of your image. And for right now, we're going to be front and center, okay? So the very first thing that you're going to set up after that are two letters, a letter O and a letter E, okay? Those letters are going to be the O at the top left and the E at the bottom right. At this stage, I know you're going to kind of just have to wing it, but just give me a nice O. When we're doing actual letters, I will probably give you the opportunity to trace some actual letters that exist, so that you're going to be able to have like probably a little bit of a better structure, okay? So we're going to go ahead, I just free-handed a circle, now I'm drawing over it a little bit harder, just to kind of perfect it. Or to perspect it, apparently. It's not perfect, but it's done, okay? Then I'm going to go on the bottom right, and I'm going to go ahead and make that letter E. My suggestion, if you're making any letter with edges or hard sides, use that ruler. So I've got my E. I'm going to drop my sides onto the E. I'm going to probably define the bottom. I'm going to give my other sides. Notice I'm always looking, I know you can't see my eyes, but I'm always looking for a straight edge, either the paper or the edge of the box. And I'm looking at the relationship of the ruler to that edge to make sure it's nice and straight, either vertical or horizontal. In this case, you can see that the distance here is equal, so I know I've got a really good line. I'm going to make the sides of that E. You can see the sides right there. I'm going to go ahead and probably start tracing the edges. Again, notice I'm comparing the space over here to make sure it's nice and even. I'm not using the numbers on my ruler at all right now. I'm just using it for a straight edge. About in the middle, notice I'm going to come in and make a couple of marks. That's going to help me see where I'm going to start and stop when I'm working on this letter E. So there are my sides. And then here's my little middle section. I'll make that one a little bit shorter. And we're almost there. I missed the corner. All right, so that E may be kind of wonky, but it's done. At this stage, again, you have to imagine that this is you, okay? That this is where your eye level is. What am I going to see on these letters, okay? What am I going to see? Am I going to see what's on top over here? If that thing is above me and off to the side, I'm not going to see anything that's above there on that letter O. What I am going to see is information on this side as well as the inside. So what I do is I find the outermost section of that O. I'm going to slide that ruler until I see, oh, that must be the outside. I'm going to go ahead and connect that nice and light. Okay? Then I'm going to do the same over here. I have it on my vanishing point. I'm going to go ahead and find wherever the outermost section is, which is right over there. Same thing goes, connected to my vanishing point. Okay? So from there, it's actually for the O pretty simple. All you need to do is define the depth. And that's that line that you're going to add in here. Very much like when we added onto the heart in 1 point perspective, you just take that same kind of a curve and you place it on the inside there. So right here, I'm going to take this curve, maybe I'm going to draw over it so I can kind of feel what that curve feels like. And I want to go ahead and put that same kind of a curve inside of there. Okay? Now, depending on this depth, if I take however long that is and I move it in here, like right into here. If I take and connect, do you see that? How I got that same O? And I used a bit of a dotted line. I hope you can see that. This then is what will define the interior of that O. So I can get rid of any little extra bits, trace over my lines a little bit stronger so I can show them to you, and have a really nice, very stable looking form. It looks, I mean, it looks like a cup. If anything, I could have a cup, maybe put a little straw in perspective. Okay, so that one is completely done. I think in orange though, I want to remind you guys that that's kind of what that circle would do on the interior, okay? And again, this circle is very much like that inner circle. And so that letter O is completely done. As of this point, once O is done, at this stage, I want to recommend that you think about lightening up your, again, orthogonals. Those are those lines that connect from your item to your vanishing point. You might want to lighten up those lines by fully erasing, or at least lighten them up a little bit. Okay? And at that point, we can move on to the letter E. So the letter E, I would have to say, same thing goes. If I'm here looking, if this is my eye level, what am I going to see? Am I going to see things over on this section over here on the letter E? Am I going to see these things? So I need to actually rationalize through it. And again, I can rationalize through it by starting to put dots. All right, I'm going to see these corners, definitely. And then as I go, I'm not going to see this, because if I'm here, I'm not going to see what's on this edge, but I may actually see the top of that letter E and this one. So that's all I think I'm going to see right now, because again, if I connect any more of these, it goes through the letter E, and I don't need it to go through the letter E. Okay? So what I'm going to do is connect up my orthogonals for what I'm sure of. And then I'm going to just kind of reassess, see what else is needed, see if I need to remove something maybe I thought wrong. Got to do this one. Now, this one, of course, when it connects, it's going to go through the letter E. Do it lightly. You can erase it, or you can skip going through. You can just draw that little piece. Connected to my vanishing point. Draw that little E. And then this one is very much like the box. So all I really need to do is add on the depth to the sides of the E. How deep do I want my letters? I'm going to go ahead and start with my nice vertical line. Don't forget, I look and make sure it's vertical to this side. I make sure that as I'm going, sorry about the camera, I make sure that as I'm going, that these are beautifully parallel. If they're not, if they eventually meet somewhere like down in here, those are not parallel lines. So we want them to be perfectly parallel. You can see that the spacing in between is really, really good. I can drop that in. Gorgeous, beautiful. Now all I have to do is connect this one to over here. Do not forget the same rule applies. They have to be beautifully parallel. If this is the top of my E, I need for this one to maintain that same amount of space all the way across. And then I find my little dot, draw that line in, and there's my E. Now, the only thing I wanted to mention is that I have this sort of a thickness in there. If I look at that, if I need it to be any thinner on the inside of here, if my letters are still like right here, if I take and I kind of measure that distance being half of the eraser, I see that I've made this E too thick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it about that same thickness. Put that line right in that E, and then erase that little bit left. I hope you can see that. Again, that gave me that same depth over here. That gives me a really, really, really important look at realism. I really paid attention. I evaluated what was needed, and I realized, ooh, no. Then if I further evaluate and I kind of analyze what I have here, I see this one is also a little bit too long to look right, quote unquote. When I say look right, If you look at it and something just looks off, you want to fix it, or you want to ask someone around you or me. This one just needs the tiniest little cutoff right at the top, and I mean it's tiny. Just, again, to keep with that illusion. So at that stage, you can get rid of your orthogonals. Now, do not skip the step of connecting all of your orthogonals straight up to the vanishing point unless you are incredibly sure of what you're doing. Otherwise, you'll get confused. So at least draw them in lightly, and once you feel really confident in what you're doing, you can just do the smaller orthogonals as long as you're sure they all connect to the vanishing point. Always use that straight edge or that ruler to make sure. Don't just eyeball it. These are perfect letters, so I do expect that they are drawn with an element of precision with the ruler when possible. With tracing, some of our letter templates for some of my other maybe curvier letters like O's and such, those are all really important things, okay? So I do want to make sure that you are all progressing through. I will put some letters up on the screen in just a second. I am going to want you guys to continue with creating, I want to say at least 3 more letters. I would like some different placement. I would prefer 4, especially if you pick some of the easier. Take a mixture of letters. Find some with peaks and valleys. Find some curves. Find some combos, like try a letter J because it has that crossbar on top as well as that nice curve underneath. Again, just go ahead and draw that letter in as perfectly as you can. Maybe I'll sketch it first and then I'll go back over it with my ruler. That's my sketch. I'll go back over it with my ruler then to perfect it and continue on my way. So I'm going to say 4 letters because you can do 1, 2, 3, 4. So on this sheet you should see a total of 6 letters for full credit and to showcase your learning. Once those 6 are done, to advance your learning, remember I just mentioned a special project. If you could please come on up and see me, I can give you a word so that you can help teach some of our team taught students a little bit more about perspective later. Okay, that's it. Have fun.